Now that you've found UBN Radio and discovered our quality talk shows, it's time to spread the word to friends, family, and the universe. 24 hours of music and talk. Radio without limits. That's why people keep coming back for more. That's ubnradio.com.
Hey, welcome back to the Larry Exercise Show. I jumped out of the chute kind of quick there because I'm excited. You know, he didn't count me in, right? I don't make mistakes. I follow the leader that messes me up and make me, okay, anyway. I jumped out of the chute real there because I am truly excited today. Thanks, everybody. This is my first show since I've been back from Vienna, Austria, and I was in Frankfurt, Germany. And I tell you, I had a wonderful time. But you know, I miss my audience. I miss my guys. I miss being in this line place that I can share information and you share with me. And I want to thank everybody for sending me some wonderful letters and emails and stuff like that. Keep them coming, keep it coming. And it's okay. Some of you guys was kind of hard on me. You know, you keep forgetting I'm from Mississippi. I don't pronounce every word right. We have our own language. So go easy on your boy. I want to thank my friends in New York. I want to thank my friends in South Africa. I want to thank my friends in Atlanta. I just appreciate you guys so much. And one of the things, and Carolyn is here with us. Hi, Carolyn.
Hello, glad to be here.
Yeah, I'm just gonna run off at the mouth a little bit because I'm so excited with this guest we have here. And we have a guest host with this young man that you're going to find fascinating. But I just want to tell you, when I was in Vienna, Austria, so I actually was staying in a village maybe 100 miles or so outside of Vienna, which I got to live with a culture, eat the way they eat, live in a home the way they lived. But their TV was really, really messed up because I couldn't speak any German at all. And so the little TV that I could get was MSNBC, Al Jazeera, and a couple of news channels. So, okay, I said, well, I'm going to do this. I'm going to keep up with the news. Boy, was I sad. I thought when I got back to the United States that Donald Trump would have moved California to Mexico and perhaps moved New York into Atlanta, or I just didn't know what was going on because all the news you get over there, you really get an understanding of how silly this election has become. And it's almost embarrassing when and I know there are a few of you that are Republicans that is watching this show. I'm totally with you. Some of you are liberals. I'm totally with you. Some of you are just plain conservatives. I'm totally with you. Be who you are. Get out and vote for whom you feel that works for you, that's going to represent you. But don't support just foolishness. Don't go out and just promote buffoonery. Because believe it or not, it affects your safety when you're traveling out of this country. And those of you that travel out of the country will know exactly what I'm saying. If you're going to sit your butt here and never going to leave your community or leave your town, then you can talk all the mess you want.
Well, I have to differ.
Oh, what are you going to differ with?
Well, I was also out of the country, but at the same time, you cannot walk out of your house and not be impacted by the multiplicity of people who are here from around the world.
Yeah.
Because we're not in an isolated environment.
Well, we're saying the same thing.
Well, you're saying if you don't leave this area.
No. What I'm saying is that if you're not going to travel outside the country, then it's easier to get by with the buffoonery. But you don't.
No,
but
I
if
heard-
you're going
I
to
heard
travel
what you said.
internationally, you got to know how much it's going to affect your safety because Donald Trump is pissing the Muslims off. They're pissing people off, which causes people
But
want to.
Mr. Yates,
Yes.
they're Muslims in America.
No, we're not getting.
They're Germans in America.
I-
They're all sorts of people. They're Mexicans in America.
I totally get you, but that is not what I'm talking about. I get that. I'm just saying to you and the listeners that when you step into some of these some of these countries, when you leave the country, the rhetoric here is causing nervousness at airports. It's causing nervousness.
I agree.
Yeah, that's all I'm talking about. Because once again, I heard people want to really understand what is going to happen with this Donald Trump. I'm not saying Donald Trump is not the right guy. I'm just saying his rhetoric is tilting the view of America politics in the eyes of a lot of people.
Well, that I agree
but,
with.
But anyway,
Yes.
let's go ahead and Carolyn, why don't you introduce this wonderful guest? Because I can go on because I'm so excited. But first of all, I'm so excited. I'm not even going to try to read it because I'm dyslexic and it'll get all mixed up. But go ahead. Please introduce the guest for us.
Well, we're honored today to have a renowned actor, writer, and director in our midst. And I hope you're watching because you'll know his face. In fact, that's why I came up, because I wanted to make sure I saw him in person. We have Roger, is it Guenveur?
It's Guenveur.
Guenveur Smith. And you may not know the name, but you'll know who he is. A brilliant and renowned director, writer, and actor. He directed the West Coast premiere of Katori Hall's The Mountaintop, which was just recently here in the Hollywood area in Melrose Theater, which was a gripping reimagination of events the night before the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. The play had a limited engagement at the Matrix Theater in honor of Black History Month and just completed actually a couple of nights ago. Roger is a gifted award-winning actor, director, and writer. His solo performance of A Huey Newton story, the international tour of Rodney King, all received distinguished awards. He's been in numerous movies and television productions. I laughed when I saw this, that Smith was born in Berkeley, California, which means there was an interesting upbringing. And he studied at Yale University and Occidental College and taught at both institutions. And he currently directs his performing history workshop at CalArts. Among the many institutions which have presented his work are the Mark Taper Forum, which I know you're all familiar with, the Public and Guthrie Theater, and London's Tate Modern Museum. So I'd like to have you welcome this amazing character actor and amazing director.
Amazing, Roger.
Thank you for having me.
Yes.
How have you been, man?
I've been really good and really blessed to be in your presence today, to meet you both, and Connor as well. We are here with
Yeah, I'm
Mr.
so
Connor Head here, who is an emerging microphone wizard, and great to be with you as well, Connor.
Well, thank you. It's great to be here.
Yeah. It's an interesting season, as you said, Larry, traveling internationally and certainly nationally and locally as well. It's an interesting moment in which we are blessed to live. You said that, it perhaps doesn't matter if Mr. Trump is ascendant or is successful, and I will say simply that he is the wrong man for the job.
Yes.
I love that.
Yes.
Do you love that?
I love that.
Oh, you agree with me, or are you going to be objective
No, here's
in
what.
hosting this show? Because I'm not going to be.
No, nail
I'm
me
going
to-
to say that he's
nail
a
me
very,
to the wall.
I'm not nailing you to
Go
the
ahead,
wall.
go ahead.
I don't want to be nailed to the wall that Mr. Trump wants to construct
Wants to build,
between
yes.
here and Mexico. That's the wall to which I don't want to be
Right.
nailed, and I'm not going to contribute to building it. I think at this point in our country, we need to be building bridges and not walls.
Absolutely.
Yes, and I thank you for saying that, because my belief system is, I personally don't try to tell other people how to think or how to believe, but what I will do is give them an opportunity to speak on that
Well, that's
on
what
that
I
topic,
believe.
and then when they
I appreciate the opportunity
exactly
for letting me do that.
But let me tell you what I really think about Mr. Trump now. So what I was
I'm
doing
listening.
is speaking to some of the
Millions
audience.
of people are listening right now.
Yeah. Well, what I was doing, I was listening. I was speaking to some of the audience out there. Is that if that's what you believe in, I'm not going to be the one to tell you that you're wrong for your belief system. But as far as Donald Trump, the man, I think that's a buffoon as far as becoming a leader. I don't think he qualifies to be the president of the United States. I think he's doing an okay job at. He was born with a silver spoon in his mouth, and he turned the silver spoon to a golden spoon. That's just clear to me. But he does not.
I think he was born with a silver spoon in the opposite end of his mouth.
Words out of my mouth.
That's out of his mouth. And,
Yes.
But go ahead, please.
no, let's not continue. Let's not waste any more time
Yeah.
on this issue. I think it's completely overblown and has gotten far too much
Too much press.
publicity.
Yes.
Let's talk about Katori Hall.
Yeah,
She constructed an extraordinary play called The Mountaintop,
Yes.
which I had the opportunity of directing recently. We just recently closed at the Matrix Theater on Melrose Avenue. It starred Danielle Truitt and Larry Bates as Dr. King. It takes place.
Excuse me,
the
just for a
night-
second. For those of you that's watching, we just had kind of a light system to move. If you see the shadows shifting a little bit, so don't
That's
let that scare
okay.
you.
The shadows will
Yeah.
shift as we
Yeah,
speak.
the shadows will shift.
Yes.
But please go ahead with
The play stars Danielle Truitt and Larry Bates as Martin Luther King. It takes place in the Lorraine Motel, the last night of Dr. King's life, April 3rd, 1968, when he had just made that great speech
Yes.
Yes.
about going to the mountaintop, seeing the promised land. I might not get there with you.
Yes.
Tremendous speech, one of the great American speeches, of course. And Katori Hall has outrageously, audaciously, and I think beautifully imagined this encounter between Dr. King and what we first think is simply a maid at the Lorraine Motel, but she transforms into someone who brings something more than a cup of coffee.
Had you worked with her before?
I had not. This was my first opportunity to work with the great playwright Katori Hall, but this was my second opportunity to work with this great cast because 3 years ago we did the play in San Diego, and we had the opportunity to do it here at the Matrix. And it was a wonderful, wonderful extended run. Went for more than 2 months, which is quite extraordinary here in Los Angeles.
Yes.
And we had a great response from the audience.
Oh man, I've been traveling, and once again, let me say how much I appreciate you coming on. And I had heard about the play. Carolyn told me about the play, but I've been doing a little traveling. Man, I missed that. So
And you didn't
hopefully
bring
down
me
the
a
road-
sausage from Vienna.
I didn't bring the.
Did you bring me a
Venus Schnitzel?
Yeah, did you bring me a Frankfurter from Frankfurt?
I did,
No,
but
you-
I had to eat it. I got hungry. You know, I hold on to all of the good food and share the McDonald's. But let me ask you a question. I had an because I'm from Mississippi. And some of you
I
know
heard
that.
Mississippi.
And yeah, I'm from Mississippi. And reason this is I was born like about 80 miles from Memphis, and so when just a couple of years ago, because we actually when Dr. Martin Luther King came through Mississippi, we was afraid of him. We was really afraid of him because we was in such a mind locked, and whites at that time had such power over the community that they was afraid to go out and support Dr. King. Although they did anyway, we got the head bashed in, but we did a show a couple of years ago and I got to go back to that hotel that they turned into a museum. Have you been there?
I have not, but
It
go
is
ahead. Yeah.
absolutely fascinating.
Yeah.
So we go to the hotel. We did the thing with Jesse Jackson
Yes.
there, and we had Usher and James Ingram. So the hotel I had gone by many years when I was a kid, but then now I go there a couple of years ago, and they've turned it into this museum. And I tell everybody, when you get an opportunity, go. And you're in the South, you're in Memphis, take some time and go visit this museum. It is absolutely mind-blowing, the room and stuff. So when you were telling me about the story of the young lady, the maid theory that you threw out there, it just went back into my head. It's like, wow, and when I'm walking through there, it's just fascinating.
I had the opportunity recently to go to the King Center in Atlanta,
In Atlanta, yes.
which is where Dr. King's grave is, with his wife, Coretta Scott King, Ebenezer Baptist Church, which, of course, was his home church. And there is a collection there of some of his items, clothing, shoes, letters, and what have you. That was very inspiring as well.
Yeah.
It's always good to have that kind of real attachment, real exposure. To the items, to the documents. Yeah.
I teach nonviolence. I did a program this year called Luminaries of Justice and Peace, and included Gandhi, Martin Luther King Jr., Nelson Mandela, others, and had people choose a luminary that they wanted to follow. So several in the class chose Martin Luther King Jr. and came with different approaches to what fascinated them about him. And I continue to use his principles of nonviolence with what my life is about and what I teach in the world. So what came from the play was there conversation about his belief or about what was happening in the world at that time?
Absolutely, and I think that it's not simply limited to what was happening in his world in his time.
Yes.
I think it's the conversation
Right now.
is about right now,
Yes.
about this moment. Did you happen to see the Jackie Robinson documentary that was
Yes.
on PBS the last couple of nights? Fascinating.
Fascinating.
Phenomenal. And the second 2 hours of the piece, we forget that he was
Yes.
even a baseball player because he was just an intelligent black man trying to make up his mind, trying to find the best way of helping us
Yes.
achieve full equality under the law. And at one point, he embraced Richard Nixon until Nixon embarrassed him and rejected him, refused to reach out to Dr. King
Yes.
when he was imprisoned under the threat of going on a chain gang,
Well,
which gave JFK Kennedy the opportunity to reach out to Dr. King, and then he won by a very small margin of votes, Kennedy over Nixon.
Well, as I remember back a little bit, is that Kennedy really wasn't reaching out to the African American community.
No,
when
not
he
at
first
all.
started out, he
Not at
was not
all.
for the African American community. And at one point, as I didn't see the show, but I'm just going on memory now. At one point, Nixon was talking a little bit more about the African American community, although he had not reached out to Dr. King and many of the civil rights leaders. So Nixon more reached out to some of the entertainers at the time, if I remember correctly in history. So, and when Kennedy saw that, he saw that gap, and then he took an opportunity when Nixon slipped up, so to speak. And that's when Kennedy started jumping in and carrying the torch. I'm here for black people. And we're seeing a lot of that in our politics today. I'm not calling anybody's name. I'll let someone else call up their name, Bernie Sanders. But but when we go back and look at history and see how it came about, the Kennedys was not in love with black people. For some reason, we think that. And one more thought on that, coming up in that era, coming out of Mississippi, and I look at what the Black Lives Matter has come to, and there was this gap, as I understand, please help me, in late 70s, early 80s, from 80s up until the cell phone started showing police being shot, that a lot of us had forgotten the struggle that we still had at hand, not what we had put behind us. A lot of us had thought that this was behind us. So it wasn't until the advent of cell phones showing policemen beating us that had the same picture that they had back in the 60s.
Well, the subject of my latest solo performance is Rodney King. And in 1991, the evening of March 3rd, 1991, Rodney King was savagely beaten by 4 members of the Los Angeles Police Department. There was a man who was on his veranda that night, George Holliday. He was an Argentinian plumber who just happened to be testing out his new video cam. It was a new technology at that time. And he saw the lights coming down from the LAPD helicopter and said, wow, let me see what's happening here. And so then he looked at his videotape and realized that he had captured the beating of a man. And he took the videotape initially to the Los Angeles Police Department, and the police department said that we can't use it. And then he took it to TV station KTLA, and they said, yes, we can use it. And before you know it, Rodney King is gone viral. Before viral was viral.
Before viral was viral.
Right? And he's, he's on Fast Forward, and he's on Rewind, and he's on Freeze Frame all over the world. And I call Rodney King the first reality TV star.
Yes.
Now, at that time in 1991, that was rather unusual. I don't think that it surprised many of us who were aware of the LAPD brutality in the city, but for most of the world, I think that it was shocking to see this very grainy videotape. But now, of course, as you say, everybody's got a camera in their telephone, and so we see these events continually tragic to reverberate virtually every day.
Is there DVDs of that play that you did, the Rodney King thing? Because I would love to
well,
see that.
I've been doing it for the last 4 years.
I would love to see that
here in Los
You did it
Angeles.
in
You've
Culver
seen
City.
it,
I've
right?
seen
You
it.
saw it at the Kirk Douglas or the Frederick Douglass Theater, as I call it.
Because
Yes.
once again, talking about the state
Excellent,
of politics in the country, and I once again, I just want to appreciate you for being open, because a lot of artists, when they come on the show, they're a little bit nervous about talking politics, religion, and whatever. And I respect that. Everybody got to protect themselves in whatever way they feel free. But I like you being open with that, because what a lot of people don't realize and correct me if I'm wrong, with the Rodney King riots, so to speak.
No, you shouldn't call it the Rodney King riots.
Right.
You should call it the Coon, Powell, Brasino, and Wind riots.
Tell me about
because
that.
those were the officers who beat him.
Right.
Coon, Powell, Brasino, and Wind. So
Coon, exactly.
Coon, Powell,
Brasino,
and
Wind. I
right,
forgot.
call them those riots.
Those riots.
See, Rodney King didn't riot.
No, but
so
hear my
it shouldn't
point.
Be called
Understand.
Well, you asked to correct
No,
if you're wrong, I don't think it should be called the Rodney King
appreciate that.
riots.
I'm totally with you on that.
Okay.
You've correct me on that, but
All
I'm moving on to my point was the riot itself. That was just a tipping point, because what really created the burnings and all of that is that the community was already a powder puff. The community was already sitting on dynamite, is what I'm leading to. Because in the community, what we saw, store owners, there was African Americans in the community, those stores were sold, they were foreclosed on, and then they brought in the Koreans. And when the Koreans came into the African American community, whether it was a cleaner, whether it was a liquor store, whether it was a local grocery store, they treated black people like shit. And I'm not going to bop my word on that. They treated black people like shit.
Latasha Harlan,
that's where I'm headed.
15-year-old girl.
Now, there you go.
Who was
shot and killed over a freaking bottle of orange juice.
$1.79 worth of orange juice. She was at
And
the
got off.
Empire Market. Soon Jadu was the woman behind the counter.
Yes.
She thought that Latasha was trying to shoplift.
Yes.
She punched her from behind the counter. Then Latasha punched her back, and then she reached underneath the counter. She threw a stool at Latasha. Latasha ducked and then put the orange juice back on the counter. She turned her back to Miss Soon Jadu. She had $2 still in her hand to pay for the orange juice, and Miss Soon Jadu reached underneath the counter and shot her in the head.
Yes.
Dead. And she still had $2 in her hand. right there in the Empire Market. And Miss Soon Jadu, however, was indicted, and she was tried, and she was convicted by a jury of her peers. And the jury recommended for voluntary manslaughter the highest possible sentence. But the presiding judge in the court, Justice Joyce Carlin, said, wait a minute, she was under great duress. We're going to give her 4 years probation, and we're going to give her a $500 fine, and we're going to require that she do 400 hours of community service. So no time served.
No time
whatsoever
served.
for a videotaped voluntary manslaughter of a 15-year-old unarmed girl.
Yes.
Black girl.
Right. And so this was
And
something that happened at the same time
Yes.
as the Rodney King case. It was just weeks after Rodney King that was beaten that this videotape emerged of Latasha Harlan's killing. And what the LAPD did was they made sure that that videotape was disseminated throughout the community and throughout local media so that the enemy, as it were, the villain, as it were, transformed from the LAPD to the Korean community.
Yes.
So that the Korean merchants then became the public enemy number one of the black community.
But along with that, because we had a liquor store on Hyde Park and West Boulevard at the time.
Right.
And that was the first place, by the way, that was the first place crack entered into the United States. And I actually was co-owner of a nightclub. And what was happening just on a day-to-day basis, where black people would walk into a Korean market and they walk in and say, well, how you doing, Korean? The Korean will say, you buy, you go. There's no how you doing, no anything. Well, that was very offensive to a lot of the black. So when you take the consciousness, how just the everyday interaction was starting to bubble up. And when these sort of things that hit the mainstream, there was other blacks that was killed in liquor store parking lots by Korean merchants owners that didn't hit the news that we personally knew about. And there were money being snatched out of young black kids' hand by Koreans owner, wouldn't give them the proper change back. So there was so much that came about. And so I appreciate what you're saying about not calling it the Rodney King ride, because once again, we kind of repeat what we hear in the media. And I totally appreciate that. Yeah. But I think that whole thing, when we look at what was happening in the black community, and now we see with the Black Lives Matter that this is nothing new, because Derek Gates lost his job. Why? Because he was doing chokehold. They had policemen that was breaking young black men's necks. And then you might have a better, what's her name was Love.
Eula Love.
Eula Love.
But Daryl Gates didn't lose his job. Daryl Gates retired.
Well, yeah. He lost it. Yeah, I guess he and Tom Bradley got together and they both had to give up.
Well, he and Bradley didn't talk to each other for a year and a half.
Yeah, the mayor and the chief of police.
When it broke on April 29th, 1992, there were no LAPD to be found within the proximity of Florence and Normandy, because Chief Gates gave the order to cease and desist. Stand down.
So you remember what was her love? What was her first name?
Eula Love.
Eula Love. You remember the Eula Love case? When I
Yes.
first came to California, did you know about that, Carolyn?
I didn't. I wasn't in this area. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think they was going to turn her lights or water off or something like that, and she came to the door with literally, if I remember correctly, correct me wrong, a butter knife. It wasn't even a butcher knife.
Yeah.
And the cop shot her. 2 cops. I think one of them African American.
May well have been.
Yeah, they shot her down and was nothing done about it. So it just goes to show what the struggles and.
I'm curious though. We have a co-host.
I was
who's
just
a little
about
bit
to.
younger, and I'm wondering what his thoughts are. Do you know this? Do you know
Mr.
any of
Head,
this
would you like
history?
to ask a question or make a comment?
I was just planning on sitting back and letting you guys do your thing because, the only thing I know about that era and the riots and everything is from reading the book Southland, which was required in an English class. Aside from that, I don't really know much here. I honestly, I was just
Tell us a
playing-
little bit about what you do know.
Okay, well, I mean, all I really know is that from an outsider perspective, you know, a lot of the riots, you know, the looting and the stealing and all this stuff, it focuses primarily on the black people, and I almost believe that it was because of like this sort of outside view, this sort of racist view of, well, there they go, look at what they do. But there's footage of white people going out and, you know, in vans and loading up whole stores.
Yes.
And that's about the extent of my knowledge. Like I said, I'm way out of my depth. I'm prepared to just observe.
And
What year were you
Very
born?
powerful.
I was born in 95.
Right. So you were born after the events that we've been alluding to. So,
By the way,
so that you know that,
yeah.
I think is something that is worth noting.
Yes.
You know, that you know that what was happening in April, May of 1992 was a multi-ethnic rebellion, as it were, or
Yeah.
Yeah.
riot, or whatever you want to call it, insurrection.
And by the way, Mr. Head, you are blind, and we invited him. Thank you, Carolyn, for getting him involved. I apologize. I got a little caught up, and but you.
Well, you were on a roll. I didn't want to.
No,
throw off your mojo.
but no, you. I invited you here and wanted you to come and sit in these, feel how it's going. And but now that you're here, Carolyn is absolutely right. But why don't you introduce? I asked you in a meeting. Were you born blind?
I was not. I was born with all of my sight, but I was also born with a condition that left me with the minimal vision that I have right now.
And so what is your vision like now?
Well, right now I can see like outlines and shapes minus, you know, fine details, but I do have full color perception, which is very apparently rare among people with my degree or lack thereof of vision.
Well, I invited you here, and I didn't know Mr. Roger was going to be here, and I think this is just an added bonus for me. I just thank you so much, man. Your strength, your power, your knowledge. I love that. And tell us why you wanted to be get into the entertainment, a talk show. Why you wanted to be a host?
Oh well, I've been performing my entire life. I mean, ever since I was a kid, you know, playing music since I was 7. Doing stand-up since I was 14, acting since I was about 12, you know. Performing in general is my life. And my dream job, ever since I started listening to the radio and a morning talk show called Kevin and Bean when I was 8 years old, every day from when they were on at 5:30 to when I went to school, every day since I was 8 years old. And it came to me, you know, that's what I want to do. So, you know, I was aspiring to this for a while, but I never knew how to get into it. So I went into school as a broadcasting major. I'm at Glendale Community College right now. And I went to one of my friends and I said, hey, I want to make a podcast. And he says, all right, well, I've wanted to make a podcast too, but I never had the motivation to do it. Let's go make a podcast.
Well, you know, for the sake of time, well, you have one of the greats in front of you, Mr. Rogers here. And what would you ask him?
I'm not sure.
I
mean, I guess one simple question would be, you know, you are a big actor and writer and everything else. Where did you start?
I started right where you started.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I was very fortunate in that I had some great mentors when I was your age and younger. I worked with a gentleman by the name of William Marshall.
Oh, wow.
Who's best known to us as Blackula.
Yeah.
But William also had an organization called the Society for Black Heritage Drama Incorporated. And we would travel all over L.A. and do poems and plays. The late, great Horace Tapscott of the Pan-African People's Orchestra was our musical director. And I had another mentor and a gentleman by the name of C. Bernard Jackson, Jack Jackson, who founded the Inner City Cultural Center
Yes.
here in Los Angeles, and a lot of people passed through there, including yours truly. So Frances Williams was a woman who was influential on me as well, and she had a theater in her garage in the Crenshaw district, and that was probably the first theater that I ever walked into as a child. So I think I was inspired at a very young age, perhaps not as young as you, Connor. And, I've had the opportunity to continue on with my inspiration and with my dream. But I think that, first of all, I was given that opportunity by my community, and I'm very grateful and hope that I can return the favor in all the ways that I possibly can.
I think you're doing a great job at it.
Yes.
You returning the favor, just coming here and letting us sit down and have this conversation, which I absolutely love, and I really love Connor. And so when you're doing this, and and we're here to support you. I'm just so happy that you came, and I'm happy that you have the courage to get started, because that's all it's about. Am I right, Mr. Roger? I mean, it's just all about making that first step, taking the opportunity that is laid before you. And while you're here the next few minutes, just relax. If something comes across your mind, feel free to ask. Okay?
All right.
What does all right mean?
Well, I don't know. What does all right mean?
Well, can I also
Yeah,
jump
please.
in for a second?
Please.
In reading the history of you being in Berkeley and going to school, I noted that you actually changed from being a history major to going into the drama department. But while I've been listening to you, you've taken that love of history and are using it in your craft. And so that's at least my perception. So would you mind sharing with us?
Well, I'm trying to do that, and thank you for recognizing that. I thought that I would pursue a PhD in history, but I wound up playing a history professor on A Different World, if you recall that TV show. But I auditioned for the drama school at Yale University. I was accepted, and I entered a great class, which included Angela Bassett,
Oh, wow.
Charles
Yeah.
Dutton, and
Oh,
John
really?
Turturro,
Oh,
and
beautiful.
Sabrina LaBeouf, who was the eldest Cosby daughter, the eldest Huxtable. So it was a great experience there studying, and I've been combining my interests ever since. I've done, a solo performance, Rodney King, Huey Newton, Frederick Douglass. I've done a piece about Bob Marley, a piece about the late, great artist Jean-Michel Basquiat. I also did a solo on Christopher Columbus, where I played
Did you?
Christopher Columbus way before
Interesting.
Hamilton,
Yes.
which is considered, so radical because you have these people of color playing the founding fathers.
I've actually been I've been laughing on the side because there's been so much. It's interesting how some negative things get the news and also positive things, which are strange.
Yeah.
Because I haven't seen Hamilton directly, but I grew up in New York. I love the theater, go whenever I can. And seeing the response to Hamilton, it sold out for like 2 years in a row, is fascinating. And at the same time, there's just something that is strange to me that they're making. It's like it's so unheard of. Yet I know young people in theater programs around the world and in inner cities can take a story and create exactly what they're doing there on a day-to-day basis because they can bring it into their current world. Maybe it's not being seen on stage, but I've been to plays at high schools and middle schools where young people use their own intelligence to say, what would that person be saying now? Or how would they articulate the situation in the words that I know today. So it's not a new thing, but I'm glad it's being celebrated.
Absolutely. I think I agree with you wholeheartedly. You know, the story of Alexander Hamilton has always been a fascinating one to me because my parents had a book in our home library called The World's Great Men of Color by J.A. Rogers, who was a self-educated Pullman Porter historian. And in this book are portraits and biographical sketches of all these men throughout history who were supposed to be men of color. One of those men, Alexander Hamilton, right? But that's not explored in this particular piece. It's simply that he was from the West Indies, that he was a so-called bastard, that he was an immigrant, so-called. But the idea that Alexander Hamilton was, in fact, a man of color because his mother was a woman of color is kind of swept underneath the rug. Also, of course, there were people of color who were extraordinarily influential during the Revolutionary period.
Yes.
So have we seen a musical called Attucks? Have we seen a musical called Phyllis Wheatley? I think not.
You know, for the sake of time, I knew this was going to go by quick. I tell you something, just sitting with the two of you, because Carolyn's from New York. You born in New York, were you?
Yes.
And you born on the West Coast. And sorry about that. I literally came out of the cotton fields. If you saw the way I lived, really and truly, it'd be back in the 1800s. No running water, none of that. I was a sharecropper, and this wasn't in the 1800s. This was in the 70s. I was still a sharecropper. And then to grow up, I don't do theater. I've never watched a game of baseball, basketball, football in my whole life. I don't listen to music for pleasure. But I say that to say to listen to the two of you being so connected with theater, being so connected with the arts, and from that raw, that it just makes me feel really good that we are here on this show together, because I'm learning so much about theater and art with this show. This show is just teaching me so much because I've never been into theater and arts and stuff like that. So I just.
But you do remember Ossie Davis.
Oh, no question about it. Remember these guys.
So when Ossie Davis came on the set in the morning, and everyone was complaining that it was too early, Ossie would typically say, "It beats picking cotton."
Yeah. Boy, don't I know that feeling, you know.
Wonderful.
So thanks, Larry, man, for doing this, for pulling it together and hosting this. It's a tremendous opportunity for all of us to engage in a conversation which is never engaged in, because there's never an opportunity to kind of stretch out and really look at history and look at the present moment and laugh about it and then get serious and then open it up. We have a multi-generational conversation here. I congratulate you, I salute you, and I thank you for welcoming me to
And
be a part of this.
I thank you so much for bringing what you bring, the realness. The not being afraid. I can't tell you how many people sit before this camera and get afraid to talk about anything. So after a while, you get to say, okay, let me see what this person is. I don't want to shock them or push them into a corner that he or she may not want to be in.
Well, listen,
but I appreciate you.
I've got a piece coming out in the fall. It's going to be released October 7th.
Tell us about that.
It's called The Birth of a Nation.
Will you come back here?
I'll make sure.
Will you come back here and promote that?
I will come back and we will talk about that.
Absolutely.
Tremendous new film by this brilliant young man by the name of Nate Parker, who has written it and who has directed it and who is starring in it. He is a Virginian. He is from Norfolk, Virginia, and this is the quintessential Virginian story, the story of the 1831 slave rebellion led by Nat Turner.
Oh, come on now. You know I got to see that. We grew up in the South. Nat Turner was our hero. I mean, that's all we heard about when we were kids. Nat Turner. Everybody wanted to be Nat Turner, But we have such a rich history. And if there's anything that we can do on this show that you feel that we can do better or help us to reach out more to other talents like that, just new upcoming plays to support in the community, feel free to let me know.
Just keep telling the truth, and
Yes.
we'll be here.
Yeah.
Right, Connor?
Yes.
Just keep telling the truth, and we'll be here, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Connor, you're my support system over there. Don't leave me out here by myself now. Yeah.
I feel so out of my depth. I'm not used to this.
You're the head brother
you're
in
good.
charge.
Yeah, you the head brother in charge.
Yes.
That's why your name is Connor Head.
Well, this would be something.
And you are indeed the potential, the possibility. And I always say, and it's said by others, that the youth are not our future, they're our present. So I want you to stand in that.
So, Connor, I can see that. And I just want you, Roger, I just thank you so much for just welcoming and working with Connor here, man. That's so great, because what we want to do in my life, I've always tried to reach out to those that may need not a helping hand, but a little support spiritually, mentally, and physically if it's needed. And I just want to thank you, Connor, for having the strength, having the courage to come here with us.
Well, thank you. I am having fun, despite the fact that you guys, you all sound so much smarter than me. Talking about all this, the cultural things, the philosophical thing. I am so lost.
And you are so young.
Yes.
And
you have so far to go and
Yes.
so much to learn, and that's a beautiful thing.
I guess that's what it is. You all
And
have
we're-
so much more experience. You're much smarter than me.
Well, we're blessed to have you in our presence, really, because this is the future, and this is the present moment as well, and it's lovely that we can share it. So I think that we can learn as much from you as you can learn from us.
Yes, absolutely.
And,
Thank you.
I can honestly say, Carolyn, I'm sorry, did I cut you off?
No.
I can say for myself, the fact that you have the courage to come, and I keep talking about courage because that's what we need. You don't have to be perfect on your journey. There is no perfection on your journey. You don't have to necessarily know where the destination is, Connor. But what I have learned in my life is sometimes focus in and enjoy the journey. Just enjoy the journey, man, because you're on a good. You're headed in a good direction now. Your head is strong. You're smart. You look. I'm Mississippi. You speak well, man. You're doing the right thing.
And he has a vision.
He has a vision.
Yeah,
And you
has
probably
a
see better
goal
than
and a
most
vision.
people I know, Connor.
Yes, they see the detail and see nothing.
Oh my goodness! All the time.
Well, that's all I really have, and I noticed this as time went on. As my sight got worse, because like I said, I was born with all of it. As it got worse, day in and day out, it was a pretty depressing time. I started feeling like, oh, what can I do with my life? I can't do things. I can't do this. I can't do that. But in the end, that's all you have is that sort of dedication. I will make it as either a talk show host or an actor or a singer because I wish it to be so, and I'm not going to stop till it happens.
Hallelujah.
Oh, hallelujah!
I'm going to take you with me.
You
Yes.
got some people here that you've just sold. I mean,
Yes.
you've just convinced me. No, you convinced me early on. I just appreciate it. So you got this play coming up in the fall.
Well, this is a film. It's called.
Oh, it's a film. I'm sorry.
Birth of a Nation.
Birth of a Nation.
But I will continue to tour with my Rodney King. I'll be in New York actually in
Oh,
August.
really?
So tell your.
Well, I want to
New
get
York
your
people.
schedule so I can
Yeah.
let people know.
Are you coming
Yes.
back into this area with anything?
I certainly hope to. We're going to do a radio version of the Mountaintop
Oh, beautiful.
Oh.
next month at UCLA.
Is this going to be live?
Yeah, we're going to do a live taping of it. So I'm sure that.
Where can I catch what station? What network?
Well, no, this will be live
A
at
recording,
UCLA.
yes.
At UCLA, we'll be recording it, so you can sit in the audience while we do it.
Oh, wow.
Can I do this? Can I go?
Absolutely, I would be honored to have you there. In fact, you would be a good person to have.
All right, then
Because
I'm
we need
in.
we need to do this for the ear because
Yes.
we're not going to have the advantage of the visuals in this. Yeah, so you can be a fantastic ally on this project.
I'm sold. I'm in.
Wow, man, that's incredible.
It is.
That's incredible. I tell you, that's incredible. Well, what we're up against the clock here now. So what I generally do, Mr. Roger, I give everybody an opportunity to give some closing words of wisdom, and we'll go around the table. Give us a few words of wisdom as we close.
Words of wisdom. If there is no struggle, there is no progress. Those who profess to favor freedom and yet depreciate agitation are those who want crops without plowing up the ground. They want rain without thunder and lightning. They want the ocean without the awful roar of its many waters. The struggle may be a moral one, it may be a physical one, or it may be both moral and physical, but it must be a struggle.
It must be. Thank you for that. Colonel, would you like to give us a quick words, just a couple of quick words to say goodbye with?
Well, I can't top that. I'm not even going to try. That was awesome.
Real quick.
I don't maybe, I guess, anyone who ever at any point in their life tries to feel like they can't do something or that they're incapable of doing something, always just fall back on the basic mantra. You can do anything and everything that you want to do so long as you wish it to be done and you are willing to do it.
Thank you so much, Colonel. Oh, that was beautiful. So, Carolyn, you want to say something?
I can't add to that. Whatever you set your mind to and believe it, you can conceive it. So I encourage everyone to have a dream.
I'm just going to, normally I close with it, but I'm going to leave it with what Roger said. The struggle has to be a struggle, has to be a struggle. You can't get rain without thunder. You can't get the field without plowing it. And you have to have the courage. You have to call it into existence. And you have to believe and stay spiritually connected from Callan. Remember, the nation can rise no higher than it elevates its woman. This is Larry Yates. Thank you. We'll see you next week.